beginning to get on my nerves. Who are those guys?
How's it going, Pips?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm glad we agreed to have this conversation because this Kenobi show really is something, and I feel like it's almost worth talking about, and I feel like the same people that were incensed by how bad Wheel of Time was will certainly be incensed by how terrible this was as well. So while Amazon is in the process of trying to not let us publish our videos, we figured we might deliver some other content.
Yeah, Disney definitely deserves the White Cloak treatment over what they're doing to our boy Kenobi here. I'll say, you know, man, I won't say that I'm as much a Star Wars fan as Wheel of Time fan in that I've seen, I guess I've seen most of the stuff. I've read a handful of the EU books, played a bunch of the video games, but I'm definitely not like the biggest Star Wars fan or biggest Star Wars nerd ever. Um, but I'm definitely enough of a fan that I'm still offended by what they've done here. So I know you're probably in the same boat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Dane's probably going to want to have the conversation. Who was disrespected more, Kenobi or Lan? But we'll probably,
Dane is Dane. I have on good authority that Dane is not going to watch the show at all. He he said he's like, look, I have the original Lego sets of like the Star Destroyer, like the Falcon, Slave One, the X-wing, like all of the stuff from the original trilogy. It's like I'm a fan, but I refuse to watch anything that they're doing with Disney Star Wars.
I
So
think he's 100. I mean, good for him because this was a conversation that I was having the other day, and I'd be curious what your input was. Disney has now had Star Wars for a decade,
which
and
is weird to think about.
yeah, like the entirety of their good production is what? Like the back half of Rogue One, one
It's funny
episode of The
you say that. That's how I
Mandalorian.
feel about Rogue One. The
Yeah, right.
first half was boring as shit. The second half was passable, mainly because of the Darth Vader scene.
Yeah, pretty much. And then I guess they also had, the Luke Skywalker episode of Mandalorian, and then I still think it's mostly Stockholm syndrome and battered wife syndrome, but like some people seem to like The Mandalorian. So I
I
guess
will
if we're
say
being
I thought that the Mandalorian was super formulaic. It was like watching the best way I can describe it
it's
is
Walker
like
Texas Ranger.
say I was gonna go the video game one to say that say you're like watching your friend play Skyrim, but it's only the side quests, and like that's the Mandalorian.
That's a great way of putting it. So I don't know, just
uh,
the crazy how low the bar has fallen when it comes to this franchise. But
I think it's because there's still like, a part of sort of the like the lizard brain just dopamine generation cycle where you see all of the Star Wars trappings and you still kind of you think of A New Hope and Empire and like you it kind of brings you back, you know? And that's leads me into I will get it right out in the beginning here. The one thing I will give this show credit for, and it's a fairly low bar given how long they've held this IP. They probably had all the props already left over from the last, movies and TV shows, but it at least feels visually like Star Wars, like the costumes, the settings, the general sort of technical put togetherness of the show, and you probably have better language to describe that. It feels like Star Wars, and that's probably where I would say the Star Wars feeling ends.
yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I will say that for the most part, what Disney has done with its um, the infrastructure that it now has available to it for producing these shows is probably unlike anything that has ever been seen before in the history of film. In the sense that they have this down to, a formulaic science when it comes to, everything technical, which is good in the sense that, we get some stuff that's sort of really high production value, but it's bad in the sense that it's become very, very formulaic. And,
Yeah.
there's something to be said that, if you know how you're going to do absolutely everything, you're never going to be struck by lightning and inspired to a moment of genius sort of uh, by necessity. And they still can't fix their writing problem.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. Um, okay, so we wanted to start out with just broader sort of thoughts on the show, and then talk a little bit of maybe episode 3, I think, is the one that just came out here, putting us at officially the halfway mark for this season, with about 2.5 hours of actual story runtime, sort of cutting out all of the intros and the last times and the credits and all that stuff, right? So we have like more than an actual Star Wars movie's worth of Star Wars from what we've seen so far. And I'll start by saying that I think we've accomplished less than has probably happened in any Star Wars movie to date. What do you think?
I think that's inarguable. I mean, when you think
I
about, I'm trying to think what's the least action packed Star Wars movie.
The first
Uh,
half of Rogue One, all of Solo.
Man,
Solo's the first time I ever fell asleep in Star Wars.
uh, if you were to ask me to recount the plot of Solo, I legitimately don't think I could tell you. I've seen it once, and I remember it just being so boring. I think, yeah, boring is the right word. You knocked it out of the park. Like unwatchable. I think with the exception of maybe Solo. Yeah, I agree. This is just it's gone basically nowhere.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, so we started out with him, just crying himself to sleep at night, doing Groundhog Day with the weird meat factory that he's doing on Tatooine. And we've gotten to him on not Tatooine with a not fight with Vader. Um, he didn't actually rescue the girl because she gets recaptured again, right? So, so we're 2+ hours in. Leia is still captured, and he's still sort of on the run. Yeah, the only thing we've really accomplished is that Leia has been captured, which happened in the first 30, 45 minutes of episode 1, I think. Um, and now everybody in the Inquisitors, Vader, all know that he's alive and they're hunting for him. So I
so
guess
I get
that's happened.
so from a pure plot perspective, is there anything that happened in episodes 2 and 3 that mattered? I get that we got the Vader Obi-Wan fight, but even that didn't, there wasn't any outcome to that battle. So, what would have stopped this show from simply having the bounty hunters drop off Leia with Riva? We would be in the exact same spot, wouldn't we?
The only thing that's happened is that Riva killed the Grand Inquisitor, which
Wasn't
screws
that at
up
the end of
the.
episode?
That was the end of episode 2,
Okay.
right? So, in episode 2 and 3, versus the bounty hunter just handing it over to Riva, yeah, the only thing that's changed is that Riva killed the Grand Inquisitor, and Vader and Ben had their showdown, if you will,
Yeah,
which is probably the worst lightsaber fight that's ever happened.
yeah. I guess let's talk about that because isn't that the highlight of what everybody was hoping for
Oh
this to
man, they
be?
definitely hyped it up.
Yeah. I mean, Jesus, just R.I.P. to my boy Kenobi, who does not deserve this.
Man, so what got me into watching this because I knew it was going to be bad from the beginning, and I saw episode one and confirmed that it was going to be bad. Was just honestly because it was going to be worth having these conversations with people that we've seen this story go, we've seen this story happen before, and it's the problem with this storytelling happening now. It's the problem with making a prologue in the sort of present year because everything they do is to undermine characters that we already know a lot about, and like that completely underwhelming fight between Vader and Kenobi. Not only is that against the character that we've seen many times that we know pretty well, it also completely messes with the continuity in A New Hope.
Yeah, and honest to God, I think that was like that was almost I think the hope of so many people was just like, guys, if we can somehow get out of this shit show of a show without like blatantly wrecking the canon of A New Hope, like we'll call it a success. Like if Obi-Wan Kenobi is just sat in his cave for 6 episodes and just doesn't wreck anything, like that's about as good as we can expect here.
It's funny when you say that. So, like you said, Disney's owned this IP for 10 years. And let's think about it. I don't know if you recall, how many billions of dollars did Disney pay for Star Wars?
4.1 billion.
Okay. So, they paid $4 billion a decade ago, which was some real damn money, right? And they did it to functionally buy, sure, the prequels, sure, some of the other IP, and like the entirety of LucasArts Studios got it. But like realistically, what they bought was the original trilogy and the fandom associated with the original trilogy. So like that's your crown jewels, right? Like those should be sacrosanct. You keep those in a vault. You bring them out once a year to sort of like make sure that they're still there, and you sort of dust them, right? So when they do things that undermine the original trilogy, you're just like, man, why? You could have made this story with your own characters and not spent $4 billion.
Yeah, absolutely. The idea that between the purchase of the property and the development costs, Disney has probably $10 billion invested in Star Wars at the moment is just an unfathomable number. But yeah, it's crazy. And I guess as White Cloaks, we were sort of the keep it, be respectful to the original stuff. And man, this show just has none of that. The and the Disney pushers that do that argue and play devil's advocate that they're not countermanding the lore. Those are the like it's the same mindset of the Wheel of Time people who are who make the arguments that like, oh well, this wasn't clear. And it's just like, no, guys, the logical interpretation of Vader saying the last time we met, I was the student and you were the master is not that the last time they fought Vader beat his ass. So, trying to interpret that as anything else is just it's dishonest.
Uh, well, yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm left wondering the same thing that I was wondering about the Wheel of Time, which is more offensive? How how little respect they have for the product, right? In this case, Star Wars. In the Wheel of Time's case, obviously Robert Jordan's books. Um, which is more offensive? Their lack of respect for that, or their lack of respect for the audience, and specifically the intelligence of the audience. I mean, if you are watching this show, the number of times where you're left sitting there like, how dumb do you think I am that I'm not going to know that a 6 year old girl can't psychoanalyze other people? She can't outrun multiple adults in like a comical worst chase scene ever constructed manner. that she just the ideas that have been put in front of us, and this third episode is probably the worst among them, where like you see Obi-Wan just comically trying to get past a laser fence that he could have just walked around. You see him like seeing Darth Vader ignite his lightsaber, and he just tries to like run to the side slightly. Like it's ridiculous what they're asking you to believe and not be pulled out of the show.
That is, just a fascinating point, and one that I sometimes wonder, do you know, do the people drinking the Kool-Aid get is like it only takes one Leia chase scene to take a person out of the immersion. And once that person is out of the immersion, it is really, really hard to get them back in. And maybe the Kool Aid drinkers, they don't have that problem, but I think most people do. And I don't know how, as a filmmaker, you're supposed to fix it if you just have like one of those genuine duds that make people, that color people's opinion of every other following scene.
Well, I mean, so you put together that assessment of the show reviews, right? And I think that's right there. When you say you think most people do have that problem, I think the data clearly shows that. So maybe it does answer the question that they have less respect for the audience because they're sitting there just pumping out product. You know, we got our studio set up, like you said, they have this down to a science. This has never been done before. They are just churning that product and just, in their mind, just printing money, right? But in reality, the audience is sitting here like, uh, what the hell is this? They're not immersed in the story. They're instead very conscious of the fact that they're sitting on their living room couch watching a very subpar attempt at character writing.
So that's actually a fascinating question that I would really like an answer to, and I'm not sure we're going to get it until the bubble pops. But what is the value of this program to Disney? Like, this isn't something that they sell advertising for. This isn't something that people go to the movies for. So
Mhm.
how are they sort of calculating, what their revenue is compared to like the $120 million budget or whatever the hell this was? And I sometimes wonder, if instead of measuring it off of um, views or whatever, they almost measure it off of like social media interaction. And I'm
Yeah.
convinced some of these companies literally confuse themselves. Like we have some guy on floor 4, paying Metacritic, to let them, review bomb
Yeah.
this. And then
Yeah. I see
somebody
what
on
you're saying.
floor 6 goes upstairs and is like, "See, boss, look at how many reviews on Metacritic we have. We're doing great."
Gosh, that man. So I've asked myself this question before, like the streaming service model, right? Like what are they getting, right? So we know that they are increasingly spending more and more money, right? So like you said, $120 million budget, so $20 million an episode roughly on this show. I think Stranger Things season 4 is that where we're on now.
Yep.
Spent $30 million an episode. We got Lord of the Rings coming out, probably going to be a huge dud. That is even the most expensive show ever made, and Wheel of Time, no slouch. All things put together was about $10 to $15 million an episode when you consider their marketing and sort of post production costs, right? So massive amounts of money are getting spent on this, and you got to wonder, like, okay, it's a subscription model, right? So are they, like you said, confusing themselves? Are they sitting there and misjudging what things are actually worth the money they're spending? And I think the only answer that we have so far is that at least Netflix has shown us that, like, yes. They are finally recognizing the beating that they're taking.
Yeah, I'm actually, I'm almost curious of the idea, if this show hadn't come out, my Disney Plus subscription probably would have sat there going out of my bank on auto pay, for months before I even thought about it. Man, this is so bad it almost makes me want to cancel out of principle. Like, Christ. I
I will
mean,
say that I am currently getting Disney Plus for free. In that, like, I think my cell phone plan gave me X amount of months, or maybe it's a credit card that I have that reimburses me. I think that's what it is. I have a credit card that'll reimburse me for a digital subscription as part of its benefits or whatever, and I'm still probably going to cancel it. So
I-
I'm literally not even paying product, and I'm still going to cancel it.
like it is crazy. Um,
Which hopefully Disney hears that.
well, I mean, if you're Disney, like you see that land chasing, you gotta fire people, right? Like Deborah Chow's gotta go. I don't know who the DOP is on this, but he's gotta go. Um, eh, well, actually, as much as I say that, the writer of this show produced some horror movie in 2007, produced or wrote a horror movie in 2007, wrote that King Arthur movie with Charlie Hunnam that flopped, and then got Zack Snyder's Coffee during Army of the Dead, which is still to this date Netflix's biggest flop. So the dude has never written anything successful, and he's now doing this. He's doing Flash for DC, and he's doing Transformers for Paramount. So much in the way that I wonder how they're judging success for these products, I'm trying to figure out how they judge success for the people that they have, making this garbage.
You mean like how is it that friggin' Rafe Judkins was hired on for multiple products after Wheel of Time?
All right, yeah. I mean, how did Sony
How
look at that and go, "This is a guy I want doing this"? Like, that makes no sense.
it's like, yeah, how is he not fired? And how did somebody else hire him?
Yeah, like I don't get it. Like,
The only thing that I can say is that I think that we're heading towards somewhat of a reckoning on these things. I think that there's only so many flops that these companies can sustain, even with the amount of massive budgets that they have. I think that they got used to early model streaming services when it was like Netflix and Hulu,
yeah,
um, and they literally could just printing money, right? And then you saw competition increase, and now you realize, oh man, uh, the average consumer is actually a little more interested in why he's paying $10 a month on 5 different streaming services when most of them are full of absolute freaking garbage.
yeah, and I think there's also a lot to be said. Um, I think people have watched most of the backlogs now,
Yeah,
so it's basically only new content that's keeping people around. And good lord, the new content on this stuff is straight up dreck. Like, I've heard good things about Stranger Things 4. I haven't watched it yet. I'm optimistic. I'm hoping. But
or just
man,
watch the first couple episodes with my wife, and it's good.
well, I mean that's encouraging. Uh, I enjoyed The Boys on Amazon Prime, so I guess,
Yep,
that's going good. But man, Disney Plus has given
Reacher,
me nothing but
Reacher was good.
right. Yeah, Reacher was good. Um, but man, Disney Plus hasn't given me shit recently, and as insulting as they are towards their customers when it comes to, like, calling them all sorts of ists and isms, like, man, you can't be giving me shit product and shit customer service. Like, that's just not the way to do it.
It's like I don't know if you know how this works, but Johnny Depp put up with Amber Heard because presumably they got to at least bang.
Right, right.
And even that got old.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Talk about yeah. Either that or the cost to break up with her was just better to just let her live in the mansion and call it a day. Stay at the villa in Italy.
Yeah, it's like Disney. You are not a dime. You are not a 10 hot, even if you may be a 10 crazy. We can't make this work. This is not long term sustainable.
Yeah, especially if Marvel's going to be going full MCU. Like that Thor
Oh my
movie might.
gosh, that's. Have you seen the She Hulk trailer?
Oh God, uh, Jesus, I
Oh
can't.
man.
I can't. Actually, the She-Hulk trailer was bad, but man, that Miss Marvel disaster that they're about to produce, like that's going to be coming out in 4 days. And when Disney knows it's about to make a bad Star Wars product, it just primes the pump by telling all the access folks that
Yep.
the Star Wars fans are about to be super racist. How bad is Miss Marvel that they're like, yeah, we're gonna dump this in the middle of Kenobi in the hopes that nobody watches it, like just nobody look at it.
Man. Oh well. I don't know
Actually,
about you. I know we were targeting a little bit shorter on this one in terms of product length here. Um, I guess all I can say is that I think this conversation has convinced me that I'm probably going to cancel my Disney subscription. So maybe that's the lesson learned. Maybe that's the whole, the mid-season wrap of Kenobi is, you know, you don't put your dick in crazy and you should cancel your Disney subscription.
I think that's probably a perfect summary of the lessons that we've learned from this. Yeah, don't keep paying people that call you racist. Like,
Yeah.
don't do it. Just fuck them.
Or, well, don't. We just talked about that.
Oh yeah, sorry, figurative, not literal. So,
Oh man.
yep. Anyway, Pips, have a good evening.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Watch something good. Watch Stranger Things or Reacher or something like that. So,
Sounds good. Have a good
yep.
one.
You too.